There we go. So I'm gonna go ahead and share the screen here, and let's go ahead and get started with O'Neill Expressionism. If you remember, this is where we left off right here. Um, we left off talking about Elmer Rice's adding machine. And remember, we talked about Mr. Zero. Notice this table still looks like a table, but it's all warped and skewed and all that business. That's how you tell if it's expressionism. In poetic realism, it would be a real table, but it might not be in connection with anything else. It probably would be moodily lit. It might have books on it. Probably not. You can see those books. One of them looks like it's like 8 inches, 12 inches thick. Again, it's in a distorted reality, whereas poetic realism is still realism. It's just enhanced. Does that make sense to everybody? So then we need to talk about O'Neill. Eugene O'Neill is often considered the American Shakespeare. He is our great single playwright. You know, you may like his stuff, you may not. I will tell you, if you're a high school teacher, do not do the works of O'Neill. Don't do them. Stay away. The reason is because you have to do it exactly as he scripted it, perfectly, or they will come for you. And when I say they will come for you, I'm actually not being sarcastic. If you're doing an O'Neill play, odds are pretty good they're going to send a viewer to watch it to make sure you have done exactly what he has intended you to do in his script. Even in a teaching environment, you just can't get away with reinterpreting O'Neill or even missing his blocking or having one of your kids miss his blocking, because then they can sue you. And they do. Don't ask me why. I don't understand, especially, I don't know why they have such a wild hair about high schools, but they do. So colleges are the same way. You don't see O'Neill done a whole lot on college campuses for exactly the same way or same reason. Beckett, we often fall into the same trap as well, but the Beckett estate is pretty good. If you call them and say, this is what I'm doing and why, they tend to be pretty flexible. O'Neill, not at all. They're very, very rigid, so be careful. The great thing about O'Neill is he doesn't lock himself into a single style. He experiments with realism, naturalism, expressionism. He's comedy, tragedy, myth. He's really trying to reach out and try all the different styles and experiment with everything. He's on the hunt for the truth, right? We talked down here, he brings psychological realism to the stage. He really digs deep into Freud and Jung when it comes to character development and what causes people to do what they do. You will probably know him best as a realistic naturalistic playwright, but he is kind of the great American expressionist. Rice was the first. Remember, we looked at the adding machine. But O'Neill's kind of the guy who continued to work in the field. What O'Neill tries to do is he seeks to deal with man's subconscious. And as he does that, he finds that realism fails to probe deeply enough, right? He says what's real and what's truth are two very different things. You know, I was at that class the other day dealing with pandemics. And there was a group of college students, I'm not calling any of you out because I don't believe it was any of y'all, apparently went to Florida because they believed their truth was that this pandemic could not affect them. 38 of the 50 students who went have all come down with COVID. All right. So obviously realism is caught up with them, but their truth was not real. And what made that truth? And O'Neill feels like you just can't reach it through fact, that we all have a different one. Expressionism therefore becomes his major technique. And he uses it to complement rather than to reject his naturalistic bent from earlier. So rather than making things look ultimately real, he makes small elements of them look ultimately real, but the rest of it looks very dreamlike. All right. He experiments with monologues, trilogues. Anyone know what a trilogue is? You want to make a guess? Yeah,
The
it's
dialogue between three actors?
exactly. Well, yes, it's like speech monologues. You're right, Preston. It's like speech monologues, but between three people. Um, I'm trying to think of a good example of this. Um, what was it? Maybe Hercules with the three witches, where they kind of each have a speech and then a speech and then a speech, but they all relate, but they don't. McBee does this sort of thing. Um, he experimented with symbolism, divided characters, meaning several people playing the same character at the same time. In a way, it's kind of like Three Tall Women, if you've seen that play. But he experiments with all those things, and he experiments with masks. Right? Do we all wear a mask in real life? Yes, we do. We often don't say what we're thinking. At least, hopefully, you don't always say what you're thinking, or what pops into your head. And so, if we wear masks on a daily basis, how is it not realism for us to wear masks? So he experiments with that as well. All right, experiments with that as well. You okay, Belle? I'm just watching Belle doing. So, all right. Nice color, by the way. I notice you're kind of matching the blue here. All right. Am I good to keep going? I'm seeing Preston. You look like you're still writing. Am I okay? All right. Cool. All right. So one of his best known pieces is The Hairy Ape. The Hairy Ape. Gee, guess who's the hairy ape, right? We are. We're apes, but anyway. Take a look at this image from, this is actually from the movie of it when he directed the movie. All right. It looks almost melodramatic in its own way, doesn't it? But notice he is a stoker. You all remember we talked about that before with industrial expressionism. A stoker is the person who feeds the fires for the machine. He's feeding the machine. That's his whole job. Notice his face looks very distorted. Notice she, right? She's in lily white, but even it's draping it around her, which causes her form to be distorted a bit. You can still tell they're people, right? They're still people, but they are a little bit distorted. But they look relatively real in the center, and then we fade out to the sides. The smoke from the fire is really what's causing that kind of dreamlike element here. All right. Emperor Jones is another one, for whoever wrote on the WPA and the theater unit, right? This is another piece by the WPA's Federal Theater Project for African American actors. And this was The Emperor Jones, all right, The Emperor Jones, which is set in Haiti, as you could probably guess. And here is an image from a modern readaptation of it. All right. Notice the trees in the background. Can you see this guy's face? See how he's a tree, but if you look inside, you can actually see the little screen and his little face in there, can't you? All right. He's got the mask on a stick so that he can, hold out the stick and act with the stick back and forth like it's its own character. But notice how none of it looks real, though, does it? It looks like distortions. Yes, it's a tree, but it's a distorted tree. It's a humanistic tree. All right. Is he real looking? Yes. Does he look real in his small space in the center? Yes. Is what's around him distorted? Also, yes. All right. Cool. All right. So that's it for Expressionism. We're not really done today, obviously, but I just wanted to wrap those slides up from before. Okay, cool. Let me share now. Actually, I've got you here. Does anyone have any questions about Expressionism before we move to Surrealism? Okay, cool. All righty. Oh, Cheyenne, you just unmuted. Did you have a question, ma'am?
Yes, I didn't hit my mic fast enough.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess you'll probably get into this more when we get into Surrealism, but what are the hard concrete differences between Expressionism and Symbolism?
In Symbolism, the big difference in those
Surrealism, I mean, sorry.
Let's hit Surrealism before we look at what are the differences.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, because if you don't know what they are, you know what I'm saying? But once we hit the backside, it'll make more sense. Cool. But fair question. All right, anything else? Cool. All right. So let's move into Surrealism. All right. Slide. Can you guys all see the Surrealism slide? Surrealism? What just happened to me? Okay. That is actually part of the surrealistic vision, is they want to create that essence of, I don't understand what's going on. Because if you don't understand what's going on, it means I've got control of your conscious mind, which is letting your subconscious come out to play. All right. Starting with surrealism, that becomes a big mantra. What is my subconscious doing here? In expressionism, we're trying to express see what I did right there? We're trying to express the subconscious. After that, we're trying to let the subconscious come out and participate. Remember, a lot of this is a pushback from realism. Film's doing it better than we can, so why am I playing in their fact equal truth pool? Let me play in my own pool of truth equals truth. All right. So surrealism seeks to reveal the higher reality of the conscious mind. All right. And it does it with fantastic imagery that often contradicts the script or even other imagery within it. All right. By doing all of this, I get to shock the unconscious or shock the conscious mind into releasing its control of the subconscious. We all spend a lot of time controlling ourselves as human beings. I mean, we just do. And surrealism says, hey, if I can get your conscious mind to take a vacation here for a minute, subconscious can come out and show me the inner truth of what's happening, right? Remember, we're looking at Jung and Freud, right? Lots of dream stuff from Jung, right? Lots of Freud with the, what makes people people, what makes us animals, etc. All right. Because the subconscious is being allowed to surface, it'd be able to find the inner truth to whatever story or whatever information or whatever element I'm trying to have my audience understand and see. These plays sometimes work and sometimes don't. I will be the first to admit I've been to some shows which I don't understand to this day. Some of you have heard this story, some of you have not. You've probably heard people in past theater histories joke about it. But I went to a show called Feet, F-E-E-T. All right, some of you are nodding. And the nightmare that was Feet. So we get to the space, right? A friend of mine's in it, and she talks, this is it, the Innovative Theater in Charlotte. And she says, you got to come down and see this thing. So I go over and I sit down in the theater. And the curtain comes up maybe not even a foot, maybe 8 inches off the floor. And what you see are feet, just feet from the ankle down. All right. Now, I'm going to say this isn't a huge house. It's probably 200 seats maybe. But, you see these feet, they stand there, they walk around, they freeze, these sorts of things. All right. 45 minutes later, curtain comes down. Okay. I got nothing. First intermission, 20 minutes. Yes, they had a 20-minute intermission for 200 people. All right. Figuring something radical is going to happen. And this is a good friend, and she's helped me out in my theater. So figure I should stick around. Curtain goes up, right? Again, about that 8 inches. All right. Their feet. This time they're in shoes or socks or whatever. And I'm thinking, I figured it out, that these feet in part 1 are the same feet in part 2, but this time they're in shoes or they're in socks. And no, that's not what's going on. You've got them doing randomly different stuff, randomly walking back and forth, just really not doing much. 45 minutes later, curtain goes down. I'm thinking, woohoo, we're done. I get to go home and someone can explain this to me. Oh no, 20-minute intermission. This is our second. All right, after the intermission, curtain goes all the way up. Now we see the whole stage. Okay, great. Now I'm going to be able to figure this thing out. That the feet then got shod, then maybe we see how they move through this. No, that's not what's happening there. You had people sitting in chairs. You had different shoes on people. It wasn't the same shoes. You had people wandering around. There was no dialogue or anything. There was no sound other than these feet walking around when they made sound. There were no lighting effects. It was just a big open stage, people reading magazines or newspapers or books or whatever, or just sitting and chatting quietly. But none of it made sense to me. So 45 minutes later, curtain goes down. If you're thinking that's 3 hours of your life you'll never get back, you are absolutely correct. So I go to my friend and I say, okay, what was that thing about? I didn't understand, and I'm sure it's my failure. I thought, at first it was, hey, I'm going to see the feet, and I'm going to see him with shoes on, and then, some metaphysical, your feet support you, or, the life of your feet or whatever. He said, no, that the director told us he didn't care what we did on stage, that the whole point was to make the audience confused. Well, it worked. Good job. I'm not sure what part of my subconscious mind was supposed to tune in there. So you have to be careful with surrealism, because sometimes it just doesn't work. Okay, it just doesn't work. And if for those of you who would like, we could perform feet even via the internet, right? We just all have these little windows all over our Zoom screen with feet. So I don't know. I still don't know what was going on with that director, but there you go. All right, but welcome to Surrealism. This is possibly the most popular surrealism out there today. Anyone want to make a guess on what this is?
Is it Cirque du Soleil?
Yep, you're absolutely right, Alex. This is Cirque du Soleil. All right. Notice they've devalued the human form. They've tried to make it look less person. The goal here is to separate you from what you can identify, from what you can matrix into something recognizable. Okay. So notice, by putting those swirls on people, by putting their hands even in gloves, by putting that weird hair behind their hood thing, it's very much distancing them from humanity, it separates them out. It separates them out. All right. I'm not sure what else I need to say other than this, right? Notice that the dude has a apple for a head. It almost looks like a pumpkin, doesn't it? You can see the arms reaching, you can see the arms reaching from the other side over here. You can see the big face behind him. It's very disjointed imagery in an effort to get your conscious mind to lock into one element and kind of be freaked out by everything, so that it gets out of the way of your subconscious. The goal really is, what in the world am I looking at? All right, because by saying that, your conscious mind goes off to figure that out, and your subconscious can duck its head out and say, hey, this looks fun.
John, if I'm ever staring off into space, that's what's going on in my head.
Fair enough. This is your normal thought process. All right, here you go. So Cheyenne, you'd asked, how do I tell the difference between surrealism and expressionism?
Oh, I think that's surrealism.
Yeah, I think so. Does anyone
I just wanted like the definitions for my notes, basically. But no, I get it like conceptually, but I wanted like hard, concrete.
Well, those are what they are. That expressionism deals with dream states. Surrealism is disjointed images.
Okay.
Letting subconscious to come to the surface. It's exactly what we talked about at the very beginning of this. I'm going back slides, guys. I'll be back. So this is your definition of surrealism right here.
Okay.
Right? Is this fantastic imagery that contradicts other imagery? Well, look at that imagery. It's all over the map, isn't it?
Hey, there on the SETC pamphlet things or whatever that we got this year, there was something very similar to that for their set.
Yeah.
Actually.
No, and this is a very classic image. When we talk surrealism, this is the one you get. Notice, and I'm not trying to be grotesque here, but one of the things surrealism often does is give you grotesque imagery to kind of shock your subconscious. Notice the person down here, and I'm not going into any more detail than what you can probably pick up on your own, but notice this woman also has two heads, stumped out legs, and arms flailed to the side. Does that make sense? And so your body, your response to this person is ooh, but when you do that, your subconscious pops up. Okay, your conscious mind hides and your subconscious pops up. But they almost look like twisted, warped sewing machines, but not, right? So, all right. Now, this is a relatively modern, it's 1950s version of the Ubu Roy. When we talk about the Ubu Roy, it's important that we understand it was way ahead of its time. If you read about the Ubu Roy, they often talk about it in terms of Dadaism. And that is true. In its day, it was probably more Dada. We have now grouped it with Surrealism because we caught up to it. Does that make sense? That we caught up to the Ubu. In its period, it was its own style. It was like, well, there's this thing called the Ubu Roy. Well, as people have begun to explore that style, they've come to the conclusion, no, this thing was the first Surrealism. It was just kind of out there on its own for many, many, many years, decades even. But let's look at the Ubu. All right, Ubu Roy. Now, I will warn you, we are in the South, and anytime you see an outfit like this, there's really only one place we in the South start looking. Please understand that is not what that thing is. You're looking at a French play by Alfred Jarry. His goal is to create a carapace and hood that hide the human form. So you can see how this, right, is sort of a modern reinterpretation of that thing. Can we all see that? See the swirl? Now, normally what would have happened in the real play is he would have no access to this hand. This hand would be sewn into his costume. Oops, hey, I don't know why it's going back. His right hand would be free, but it would have a big pocket, and he'd spend most of the time with his hand in his pocket. And then he'd haul around a toilet brush. The reason we don't hood Ubu anymore is, I think, pretty obvious. If you look at this, especially in the South, that looks like a Klansman, doesn't he? All right. And it's not the image we're trying to create. All right. That is not what's happening here. So we've gone away from that. He tends to get a bowler hat or something silly. All right. So Yates went to the first production of this thing. And I'm going to try and move this out of the way so I can read to you guys. But Yates was one of the first viewers to the opening night. He says, I go to the first, you don't have to write this down. It's just to give you a feeling for what people saw. Do you all know who Yates is? Famous poet, writer? Okay. I go to the first performance of Alfred Jarry's Ubu Roy at the Théâtre du Louvre. The players are supposed to be dolls, toys, marionettes. And now they are all hopping like wooden frogs. And I can see for myself that the chief personage, who is some kind of king, carries for a scepter a brush of the kind we use to clean a closet. He doesn't mean like a closet. He means a water closet, which has another name of potty. Does that make sense? So he's got a toilet brush. Feeling bound to support the most spirited party, we have shouted for the play. But that night at the Hotel Cornet, I'm very sad for comedy. All right, that he believes that this thing is going to ruin theater. All right, now, I'm not being crude. Please understand, we're going to use this sort of language next class period too, because Ubu Roy literally translates as the king of shit. All right, he's the king of poo, but not poop in like, oh, it's delicate poop, but I mean in a more grotesque way. All right. And part of Ubu, as you read it, you'll explore the difficulty that Jarry was trying to show about power. All right. So these are things you do need to know. First of all, he wanted a mask for Ubu. He felt that Ubu should not look like a human being. You saw the hood. We'll look at another picture here in a little while. But he wanted him to look, oops, sorry guys. He wanted him to look unreal. He wants a cardboard horse's head for Ubu to hang around his neck as they run around the stage for the two equestrian scenes. Why? He's trying to make you kind of disjointed and dissolve, maybe dissolute your connection to reality. All right. He doesn't want you to be able to identify Ubu as a human being. He doesn't want you to be able to identify the horse as a horse that is kind of almost a symbol of a horse. So it's important to note, although Ubu's costume would have been white, and there's a practical reason for that. I'm going to go back up for just a second. I promise I'll come back to this slide. It's important that you understand, and again, I'm not trying to be crude here. This is the show it is. Notice he sort of looks like the poop emoji, doesn't he? Right? That's what he's looking for.
The poop emoji.
He does, doesn't he? He kind of sort of looks like the humanoid poop
That's not me.
emoji.
That's channel. Call for her player.
Well, but that's what Jerry's looking for, right? He's the Ubu Roy. He's the king of poop. He's supposed to look like poop. The practical reason he was in a white costume was because the lighting at the theaters they were using wasn't very good. And so for him to actually kind of highlight and stand out, he had to be in white instead of brown, because the brown they would have used in that lighting would have just faded away into the background. So he is stark white poop with squirrels painted on him.
He's bird shit.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, except he doesn't have the little black piece at the top. All right. So he says, all these details fit in with the mood of the play, since my intention was in any case to write a puppet play. So when Yeats talks about the people walking around the stage, it's important to understand they are walking as puppets. They are, it sounds silly, but you got to think of doing the robot, right? So, you're walking around, try and do this way, I'm kind of hunched, right? So you're walking like this as opposed to walking around a stage, right? So you get here and you do that sort of performance. Again, trying an effort to make you look less human. So your conscious mind has less to maintain, less to grab hold of. All right. And a bunch of people still writing, so I can wait for a second for y'all. Catch on up. All right, am I good to keep going? Yes? Cool. All right. What he wants is one single stage set, or better still, a plain backdrop. He really wants an empty space. I'll be right back. Notice here, it's a big empty space with a backdrop and that table and one bench, right? And even this table and bench, if you notice, see how the lines are painted on it? So it looks like a drawing, doesn't it? You see this even now with like Your Good Man, Charlie Brown. People will often paint their sets to look like that, won't they? But they look very unreal. They look cartoonish. They look puppetish, don't they? All right, I'll go back to that slide. Sorry, I just wanted you to be able to see it. All right. He wanted to avoid the raising and dropping of the curtain during the single act. So when you read the Ubu Roy, it is intended to be done straight through. No break, no gap, no nothing. If they have a scene change, what he wanted to have happen is a formally dressed individual would walk on stage, just as he does in puppet shows, and hang a placard indicating where the next scene takes place. We've all seen this, especially with like melodrama stuff, where the guy comes in, he's got the little poster that says, in a field nearby 2 days later, and he sticks it on the little stand that's on the right. Think vaudeville. Y'all know what I'm talking about roughly. So he wants this because, again, it will formally distance you from what's really happening. All right. It makes you feel very alien to what's up there. Because, I mean, how often does someone walk by and just simply in your life and says, 2 days later? I don't know. With this pandemic, maybe it will be, 6 weeks later, and then all of our lives get back to normal. But who knows? As you guys are writing, I'm going to remind you all that this is kind of the first step of surrealism. That like what you saw from some of the earlier images, they take him to the nth level, don't they? That final image with the woman on the floor, woman is kind of the better quote, on the floor with the weird bird things or the big statue thing, and etc. that they build upon what Jerry starts. They build on his foundation, because he is so far ahead of them. He is so far ahead of everybody when it comes to this. Remember, this is a radical time for us. We've stopped asking what's fact, and now we're just trying to explore the truth. And a lot of questions come up when we are exploring this. Remember, at the end of the day, catharsis is the goal we're all shooting for, right? So how can I get my audience to group imagine or group unimagine the world around them to find a group truth? All right. When we move into our next section with absurdism and such, we're going to start looking at Aristotle and say, look, this guy may have been right 2,000 some odd years ago, but the world is a different place. How do we solve that? How do we work with that? All right, cool. In the Ubu Roy, Jerry wants to abolish crowds. He doesn't want lots of crowded spaces. I know y'all can relate to that today. What he wants also is a special accent, or better still, a special voice for the principal actor. I will do it here. I promise there is nothing wrong with your audio. Okay? What he wanted was a voice. I'm not kidding. That's what he was looking for, where you kick it up into kind of puppets, right? But then you fluctuate within that to create a totally artificial sound to a voice. Because even someone in a mask or in a big suit, as soon as they speak with a human voice, you can kind of lock in and say, that's a person in a costume. What he was looking for is to freak you out. All right, remember, get your conscious mind and your subconscious mind working at odds. All right, he wanted the costume divorced as far as possible from local color or chronology. It's going to be hard, but you have to keep these things in mind when you read Ubu Roy for next time. All right, try to hear the voice in your head. If you guys do a group reading, as I know sometimes you used to do when you were around, do the crazy voices, do the weird movement. Remember, you can read this thing and it can just feel like a weird realism play, and that's not what's going on. It can, honestly, it can feel like a very badly written realism, because that's not what it is. It is surrealism, and it is supposed to be out there. He wants it to give the impression of something eternal, not just a realistic story that applies today, but something that goes beyond that, something in the never, never land. All right. He does want modern costumes. He doesn't want some sort of period. When you read it, you'll feel very Shakespeare-y. But he wants the satire to be modern, and therefore he wants modern costumes, but he doesn't want them to look like real people. He wants shoddy ones. He wants poorly built. The more wretched and horrible, the happier it is. The less like an actual pair of clothes or set of clothes you'd actually wear, the happier he is. Remember, his big visuals here aren't going to be a set. It's going to be the costumes that people are wearing, and the way they're moving around the stage. I'm checking the time here. Cool. All right. Cool. All right. So just as a quick bullet point here, here's a better picture of the Ubu Roy. Again, you can see how in the modern, especially in the American audience, that immediately jumps as a Klan guy, and that's not what's going on there. But remember, he wants a voice with a special accent. He wants robotic action. He wants things that cover the head and the face, so you can't really identify the human being. He wants to change the body into a vast carapace. Notice here with the feet, they barely stick out the bottom of that thing, don't they? Can you imagine walking in that thing? But he wants an absolute absence of psychological realism. All right, and these are just reminders of what we wrote. All right, what we wrote already. I think to some extent, as you experience surrealism on Monday, this will make a lot more sense. The goal is for it to leave you wondering what you have just seen. What? I don't understand anything I just saw. Yes, you're right. You're supposed to think about it. I mean, heck, I don't know what feet was about, but I've been thinking about that thing since, what, 93 or 94? So obviously it affected me in some way, didn't it? Heck, y'all weren't even alive when I saw feet. Wow, I'm old. But at the end of the day, it still has me thinking about it now and again. All right, cool. All right, so with that being said, I have 10:43. I will stick around here. I'm going to stop the share here. I'm going to stick around here. I'm willing to answer questions. I'm willing to have you go out, take the quiz, come back, and I'll still stick around to answer questions. So, ciao. I wish you guys luck, and I really do miss y'all. This sucks. I was in the costume shop the other day, and I actually pulled the minions onto the table so I could have people to hang out with. So, yeah. So I know. I was like, where is everybody? So I know that's how pathetic my life is. All right.
Hey, John.
Yeah.
When I come to get stuff, you know how we all have to come back to the school to get
Yes.
stuff? Am I allowed to come to the theater to get my sewing machine or something?
Yes. Yeah. Let me know when you want to come, and I'll make sure it's unlocked.
Cool.
I'm not allowed to actually, in theory, have interaction with you guys when you're on campus. It is what it is. But yeah, let me know, because I know yours is there. Belle, yours is there. Looking around, I don't know if Stephanie, yours is still in there. Or Haley,
Garrett's is there, and I'm actually going to come like today.
Okay. Yeah, it's
I have
unlocked.
mine here in my apartment.
Right now it's unlocked. I'll be here. I have 1500 to 1700. I'll be here on the computer working on the VTalk. The back door over by the Jeep is open, I know. Cool. All right.
So is the quiz unlocked now?
Yes, it is unlocked right now. All right.
I keep trying to get in, but it's like
Well,
not letting
Find
me.
it.
It could just now have unlocked.
Oh, it showed me a little panda. Oh, it has a panda with a little treasure chest, and it says it's locked until March 30th at 10 a.m.
Are you going for the wrong one?
It said, oh, that's the Roy one. I'm sorry.
Yep, you're looking for
find
March
it.
27 attendance, guys. March
don't
20.
see it.
In fact, right now it says it is open.
What the
Yep.
heck?
Yeah,
you
you're
look
looking.
at
Oh, I
Underneath
found
your
it. It's under
calendars.
quizzes. It's under quizzes. I still don't know how to navigate this shit.
Yeah, go to quizzes. On the
Mine
quizzes,
is
it'll
still
list.
like not letting me in.
Oh yeah, it says answers are final time. Oh, take quiz. There it goes.
Yeah,
Mine is
mine's
still
I'm
not
doing it
letting
on
me
my
in.
phone on the app. Maybe that'll
Refresh
help.
the browser.
yeah. All I can tell you is it just let me in. So I can't tell you why
It
it's not letting
just
me in.
let me in. I'm taking it.
I
Currently.
took it on my phone.
Yeah, that's fine.
I'm trying to take mine on my phone, but it's not letting me.
I don't have a good answer to that
Try
question.
refreshing your screen.
What the
Yeah.
heck?
Yeah, she's right. Try refreshing. If you just simply click let me in.
I refreshed it like 6 times, and it's still not letting me in.
Who else? Hang on one second. Who else is having trouble getting in?
I
Like
just
I wish I
got
could
in.
share
I'm
the
taking
screen
it
with you. Like
now.
it's not letting me do anything.
All right, but
Mine is
Cheyenne
okay.
Wellborn, you said yours worked fine?
Yeah, I'm currently taking it.
Okay.
I just
It's
did
not the
mine on my
hardest quiz you've
phone.
ever seen.
Hold on, let me go to the actual website.
I just went on the app on my phone and it.
Yeah, that's what I'm like.
Someone's
doing.
calling someone.
Was able to take mine. It worked for me.
You squeeze them, we freeze them.
If you, Chandler, if you click on the quiz and swipe twice, then it comes up on your phone.
John, after we take the quiz, are we good to go?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And normally
Alex, I
you're
know
good to
that was
go
you
as
that
soon
told
as
me
I
that.
release you
Thank
to the
you.
quiz.
Okay. Bye.
Yeah. Bye, guys.